If you're feeling overwhelmed in a finance team of one, particularly in a startup, you're not really alone. This is quite common. I speak to heads of finance, finance controller, new finance directors every week, and most of them are juggling everything. So that's month end, payroll, cash flow, board pack, founders, and they may have a bookkeeper working outside of the company for them. But working like this is really unsustainable, and you can't really build a strategic finance function if you're doing everything yourself and you're struggling to keep up with demand and always firefighting. So today I'm going to go through how you can actually delegate financial tasks effectively when there's just you in-house. So we will cover what only you should be doing, how to get most out of your bookkeeper, and how you can protect your time and sanity without dropping the ball. Hi, my name's Alysha Randall. I am the founder of Fast Growth Consulting and Financial Leadership Foundations. I am a fractional CFO, and I also train new and aspiring finance leader within startups and scale-ups, and I'm an author of a book on the same topic. So if this sounds like something that you're interested in, then please do hit the subscribe button. So start with what only you should be doing. So when you're overwhelmed as a finance team of one, you should be looking at what you should be doing and potentially what someone else should be doing. So the first step, unfortunately, is to write down a timesheet, whether it's a timesheet or a task list. So sometimes I find you might be doing more than you expect, or rather, some of your tasks are taking a lot longer than you really think. So start off by writing down all the things that you do, and then potentially take a timesheet for 1 to 2 weeks, maybe up to a month. So then you cover the monthly cycle. And then you can really take a look at what you're doing and what you're really spending your time on. I actually do this with my teams, and even with the teams that we support within the startups. I get the people that are working within the business to do a timesheet for a couple of 2 to 4 weeks. So we get a good feel of what is taking up a lot of time and what each of the roles are doing. So if you're a strategic leader, so the tasks that you should be doing are things like presenting to the board, leading on budgeting and forecasting, interpreting the numbers for commercial impact, making decisions alongside the founder. That's what you should be spending your time on. What you shouldn't be spending your time on are things like filing VAT returns, coding transactions, reconciling the bank, chasing invoices, or what I hear quite often is chasing receipts from the rest of the team. So get a clear understanding of what you should be spending your time on and what you really want to delegate your time for, and the tasks that are taking up too much time and the tasks that you shouldn't be doing. How to actually delegate to a bookkeeper or a junior member of staff. So because we are talking about team of one, usually that means it's you in-house and then you have a bookkeeper externally. So that's probably the most common scenario here. But this is where sometimes it can break down. So you may think, oh, they're not really that great, or I don't really trust them with this particular task, or it's much faster if I just do it myself. Unfortunately, these kind of scenarios is not very much leadership, it's martyrdom almost. So what you really need to do instead of this is set the expectations clearly. So you want weekly communications with your bookkeeper, you want timetables, checklists, processes, SLAs. You really want to be very clear on what they should be doing and what you should be doing. You also want to keep the inputs clean, so we want to make sure that your foundations are steady. You want Xero if that's what you're using, or QuickBooks or MYOB, to be clean and easy to use. So if there is stuff all over the place, if there are a million Google Sheets that the bookkeeper has to rely on because that's how everything's been put together, you may need to spend a bit of time housekeeping so it's easier for them to do like that. Most bookkeepers will work with you using a shared inbox, like finance at or accounts at, and there'll also be shared folders like a Google Drive, for example. Most people have this set up. If you don't, I'd highly recommend that you set this up so that you're working in the same space. And also sometimes you do need to give context. So a bookkeeper isn't in-house. And if they don't really understand something, or you want to start set processes, I would recommend that you record it. So whether you use Zoom and keep that recording, or you use something like Loom, where they will keep under 5-minute videos for you, and you can just share a link. You may want to start doing that and building a backlog. So giving some instructions, but recording it so it's always there and they can always refer to it is also quite important. You obviously do need to trust your bookkeeper and work with them. So if they need to upskill, but you do obviously need to verify. So delegate, but review. That's the most important thing. Obviously, the buck stops with you. You're the owner of the finance team, so you do need to make sure that what you're outputting to the rest of the business is accurate. Processes and templates, they are your best friends. So when you're overwhelmed in a finance team of one, sometimes some of the stress can come with decision fatigue. You may have a situation where the bookkeeper is constantly asking for your inputs. So you want to template as much as possible. With a lot of things in leadership, I don't know how many times I've said this, but short-term pain is long-term gain. So you may need to spend a bit of time getting that structure in place, but it will help you further down the line. So some examples of that is a proper month-end checklist, very detailed, very much saying who does what, when is it due, and then it's a working document, so they let you know when things have been done. They update that regularly. Within that should also be a communication plan. So for example, 5 days before month end, these automatic emails need to go out to remind everyone that certain things are done by certain dates. Cash flow models that pull from actuals, much better than having to do that manually. There are quite a few little tools out there. I'll probably have one in my next tech stack update. Budget and reforecast templates. Again, template as much as you can. Email templates as well for chasing purchase orders or overdue invoices or what have you. Sometimes you don't really need fancy tech. You just need to document what you're doing and then automate it from there, and that'll just save you hours. One thing that I always find with bookkeepers is we, of course, have something like Dext or HubDoc that captures the default codes, account codes and cost centers, if you have them, for each of the new suppliers. But sometimes it's good to just export that into a Google Sheet as well. So you can easily, if there's a new supplier, you just update that and they refer to that regularly. Or you put the type of costs within there so they have something to refer to and are not having to Slack you or message you or email you regularly for your input. Set communication boundaries early. So the number of finance leads I see burn out because they're acting like HR, like operations, like a therapist. There's just too much to count. So you do need to protect your time. So set rules like finance at inbox for all requests. So if someone wants something paid, they have an invoice or have a question about a supplier, tell them to send it to the finance at inbox. Your bookkeeper should be asking those questions, not you. Cash flow updates, if you do that every Monday, make sure all invoice queries are in by Friday. Don't DM me or Slack unless it's urgent, something like that. You need to set these kind of boundaries or these kind of rules. Again, sometimes it's referring to what is taking up a lot of your time and then mitigating that with a process or a rule, shall we say, or a policy that makes your life a bit easier. I would say the therapy piece is a big one for me, not necessarily now because I'm a fractional CFO, although sometimes my one-to-one catch-ups can feel like a therapy session. But particularly when I was in corporate, I think because when you're a finance leader, you hold so much confidential information, people tend to trust you and feel that anything they tell you will stay with you. And so you can become a company therapist. And I don't know how many times I've had leadership team members tell me their challenges with the rest of the business and the politics. So sometimes you do need to be a little bit strict if you find that you're the company therapist and really you just don't have time to deal with that kind of information or those kind of conversations. Unless of course you're at the beginning of building a relationship, you need to do a bit of that. When it's time to ask for more resource. So if you've done everything the above and you're still working nights and working on the weekends, obviously as a finance person, sometimes you will be working nights and weekends just before, say, an annual budget is due or you're fundraising. But if you're doing this for 6 months or more, then you've got a problem and you really don't want to burn out. So you need to build your case for additional resources. So again, time log your admin work for a couple of weeks, flag those real high risk tasks that you're just not getting done, and then propose a solution. So whether it's a 2-week junior or upgrading your bookkeeper or maybe even bringing in a finance manager. So it isn't just about not being able to cope. It's about keeping your capacity and that you're able to lead and you're not just someone overpaid to do admin work. You're a finance leader. So the business really needs you thinking ahead and doing the strategic work that can really push the company forward. They don't want you worrying about who hasn't submitted their receipts this month and you can't finalize month end. That's not what you should be doing. So they can overpay you to do all this administrative work, or they can pay a little bit more for a junior or upgrade your bookkeeper's time so that you can do the tasks that will drive the business forward. Delegate, don't abdicate. So just because you're delegating something doesn't mean it's off your radar forever. So, you do need to review reconciliations and journals. You do need to check the aged AP and AR reports. You do need to look for anomalies in payroll or expenses and do your balance sheet review or balance sheet recs. So you are the final sign off. You are the one that investors look to. Delegating helps you to do the more interesting work, but you do still need to be across the numbers. Bookkeepers, outsourced bookkeepers generally have many, many, many clients and they are just trying to get through everything as fast as possible. So they can make silly mistakes, but they also don't check the balance sheet in a huge amount of detail like you would. So they will certainly do cash flow reconciliations, and I certainly encourage bookkeepers to do the remainder of the balance sheet reconciliations, but sometimes there might be an amount that has been there for ages and they haven't thought to look at it because it's been there for so long. That's a perfect example of when your balance sheet can get quite messy and you probably do need to sort those things out because your bookkeeper is not. So as much as you can delegate, you still need to take ownership. So my final thoughts is that you aren't alone. So being overwhelmed in a finance team, particularly in a startup, it's almost like a rite of passage. But basically, what you want to be careful of is you don't want to normalize that long term. So if you do want to step up and become a real finance leader, you do need to stop being a bottleneck and focus on leading, not just delivering. So it's that forward looking, not just backward looking. So at Financial Leadership Foundations, we really do help finance professionals make this step up all the time. So whether it's people that read my book or whether it's looking for more templates or training or a community of people going through the same things that you are, then check out the links below and we can certainly help you. And then you're with a group of people that completely understand what you're going through. You can implement some changes. We can help you with skills and confidence to make sure that you're not going to burn out. Because again, in a startup, a finance leader of one is often overwhelmed. So don't feel an imposter syndrome that this is, you're just not doing your job properly. This is completely normal. And I mean, personally, I went through this as well. So definitely take a look at the resources we have below. If you could think that you, in 12 months' time, you could be much more confident and understand where you are in your role and not working every weekend in 12 months, that would be amazing. So definitely take a look at that. And if this video really helped you, then don't forget to subscribe. And I do a weekly video once a week. I'd love for you to leave a comment below and let me know what's been a real big struggle for you as a team of one in a startup. And otherwise, I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.